Okay, we are going to go to part two of birth chart interpretation. But let me go back and give a little review of part one. In part one, the subject, right, is I'm gonna call him Larry. It might be a woman, it might be a man, but let me call the person Larry, right? Born on August 18th, 1999 at 11 a.m. in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Let me double check that to make sure, because there's always a little glitch in there. Okay, absolutely. Okay. Now, when I do a birth chart, when someone asks for a birth chart, and we'll go to the preliminaries. The first thing I do as part one is that I do see I break it into seven parts. You pay for three of the seven parts. Because with the birth chart, you can go on and on and on and on, and so much information you'll be paying forever for installments. So for 360, I give you what's important. Later on, you can pay for more installments for further analysis and deeper aspects of the birth chart, because it's actually endless. To be honest, it's literally endless. So the part one, we took care of the elements in a birth chart, right? Fire, water, air, earth. If you have a lot of earth, then in this life, you're gonna have a lot of money, or you're gonna make a lot of money. You're gonna have good health, be grounded, get things done. You know, Kind of like the epitome of Capricorn energy, which is cardinal earth, right? Uh, if there's a predominance of water in the chart, independent of your sun sign. For example, I'm an earth sign, Virgo, but in my birth chart, I have a predominance of fire, which makes me outspoken, energetic, courageous, and I have tremendous endurance, okay, to withstand obstacles, adversity, and to also conquer them. Right? If there is, if you have a lot of water, then that means that you're very emotionally rich and imaginative and creative. Fire also is very creative, but not with the temperament of the water element. Water is also creative, but quite different in its expression than the fire expression of creativity, right? Here we have more compassion when we're dealing with water signs or the water element. Whereas with the fire, you're dealing more with execution and focus. Okay? It's very secularly directed, whereas the water element is more embracing and encompassing, like a sponge and just absorbing everything around. Okay, the fire element is nothing like that. It's more like a straight arrow going to a specific target, independent of its environment or even its effectiveness in the environment. Whereas with the water emphasis, it's not like that. It takes into consideration everything in a particular space or area, and it's all encompassing. Okay. Then you have the air element. Now, the air element deals with the mind and the intellect. So if there's a predominance of air in your birth chart, then you're going to be very intelligent, very astute, a problem solver, and you're probably here to develop the intellectual faculties. You may have to get a job or a career dealing with the mind rather than with your hands, which will fall with earth or fire emphasis. Right? And then you have, what else did I do? Well, that's it. You have the air, the water, the fire, and the earth. Okay, so and with those four elements, you can create two more divisions, and that's the, for example, cardinal, mutable, and fixed. The cardinal signs is Capricorn, Aries, Cancer, and Libra. And those are the ones that actually are the go-getters, the ones that get things done, the ones that are the task masters, and are the ones that furnish end results. Right? Whether you are a cardinal sign or not, because for example, like myself, I am a Virgo, which is not a cardinal sign, but I have a lot of cardinality in my birth chart, which forces me to be a leader and to create a mark in this world. Okay, so many of you may be different elements, but may have a strong cardinal emphasis. Okay, so that's another division. We have cardinal, mutable, and fixed. So if you have a mutable emphasis, then you are more um, receptive to the environment, receptive to people's needs, receptive, intuitive, and you have foresight onto what someone needs, wants, either a person or even an animal or an environment. It's more like the nurse in a hospital, or it could be that janitor in a school who gives you side advice that's actually better than that of a school counselor, right? It's very supportive. The mutable emphasis is very supportive. Okay, it is the ancillary staff, like you have the medical staff, doctors, physicians assistants, surgeons, right? And now, when I was younger, it wasn't. But now we also include the nurses or the head nurse. Then you have the ancillary staff. Ancillary means supportive, the support staff. So the mutable emphasis is more like the support staff. When the Pope is walking down the red carpet, right, with his regalia, you have the young bishop carrying his veil in the background behind him. That's mutable. It's support, like a support staff. So if there is a strong mutable emphasis, then the person might be a healer, maybe someone who is inclined to put others first rather than putting themselves first. That will be the cardinal emphasis. Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn. Right? And then you have the fixed signs. Okay. The mutable signs is Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And the fixed signs is Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, and Leo. The fixed signs actually create the spokes of the wheel of the birth chart. Okay? If I can illustrate, if you want to follow this birth chart, go to astrotheme.com now. I'll give you a minute so you can follow me on the birth chart. And you put www in the little box, right? Or put Larry, and you put August 18th, as it's in the header, 1999, 11 a.m., Lake Charles, Louisiana. And the chart should pop up so you can follow it. I gave the coordinates in the first part. I'll run it real quickly here to make it more cohesive. You will have a booger. To make it more cohesive. Okay, so where is my handkerchief? There we go. It has been I'm sorry, but the weather here has been terrible. Cold, then rain, storms. The video I did today was a disappointment because you couldn't hardly hear me because of the wind. That's why I don't like to videotape outside. And that was a bust because I think you hardly heard anything I said in that video. But that is how the universe wanted it to be. So I leave it alone. I've learned not to put too much energy on things you can't control because there's nothing you can do about it. So now let me illustrate what I mean here. I mean, it's really not that complicated, but I like to do a little visual so it doesn't get too boring. I really don't like to do like the birth chart and they show the wheel and all those, show all these technical things, all this mathematical technical things, because then it becomes kind of like boring. Uh, I want to try to make it as interesting as possible. Say you have the circle, right? So what's holding the circle together, right? Like a wheel, right? Those are the spokes that holds the wheel together, right? And that is where you have your Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. Okay, these are the fixed signs, and without the fixed signs, there is no circle. Without the fixed signs, there is no stability. Without the fixed signs, there is no groundness. So if someone has a lot of fixed emphasis or fixity emphasis in the birth chart, these are people that can be very reliable, very trustworthy, and they stand the test of time. Okay, their job is to be permanent fixtures, however that may come across in what they do or what they say or what they stand for. These individuals that possess strong fixity emphasis, right? And then you have the mutable emphasis, right? And the mutable emphasis, beginning with Virgo, Pisces, right? Gemini, and Sag. Okay? The mutable signs are like, when you have a car, you have to have the gasoline in the car. You have to. And a lot of people forget that you need to have water in the car. If there's no water in the car, then it's going to burn out the engine. But there's another element that a car needs, that without this element or substance, it can still burn out the engine. And if it burns out the engine, unlike the water, you have to replace the engine or get a new car. Okay? And that's the oil. The car needs oil. Not only does it need the gas, it needs water, but it also needs oil. Okay? The oil is the mutable emphasis. The oil makes sure that everything is lubricated and runs smoothly. It doesn't get rusted. It doesn't dry up or corrode. Okay, if you remember the Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man, he kept getting stuck, or rusted. So you have to put the oil on him so he can keep moving. That is a best description of the mutable emphasis. The mutable emphasis facilitates, and that really is the action verb that I can use. It facilitates movement or anything without, that a little bit of oil to make things move and lubricated. Well, even in sex, you need lube. I mean, I'm being for real now. No, the mutable emphasis facilitates, allows things to flow smoothly. It allows one transition to another. Okay, whereas the fixed signs do not award you that kind of transition, and neither does the cardinal signs. And even if they do, it's very rough and very coarse. With the mutable emphasis, there's more time, there's more variety, flexibility, which awards or lends to creativity. Because without those factors, you cannot have creativity. So the mutable emphasis expresses creativity. So people that have a strong mutable emphasis are very creative, very artistic. They're management solvers. They're problem solvers. The fixed signs can be as well, but more rigid. It's not as embracing and all encompassing as with the mutable emphasis. Your artists, your painters, your sculptors, your writers, your lyricists, your poetists, these fall under the mutable emphasis. Okay? And then, of course, you have the cardinal emphasis. And again, the cardinal emphasis, you see, because you could be creative and artistic all you want, but if you don't make something of it, then one would say that it's a waste of talent or it's a waste of resource. Some people say, "Oh, I'm a great writer." People have always said that I was a writer and that I can, I'm giving an example, and that I should go out and publish a book. Oh, but I don't know. I just like to write for myself. I don't want to really go out there and get into the politics of publishing books and getting a publisher and rewrites. And when someone talks to you like that, they're letting you know that they don't have the cardinal emphasis to go and get it done. The cardinal signs are the movers and shakers. They're the ones that are going to make sure, or that type of energy, is going to make sure that you accomplish what you set out to do. Hold on, I think my tea is ready. Hold on, guys. Okay, Simon, you want to say hello? Come, say hello. I think he kind of knows when I'm on the air because he will not come near the TV to save your life. Come, you don't even say hello? Mason. It's crazy. It is crazy. He knows that I'm live and he won't come near me. Okay, so again, the cardinal emphasis. So we spoke about the cardinal, mutable, and fixed. That's one division of the four elements of fire, water, earth, and air. Then we have another division of the same water, fire, air, and earth elements. And we call this the angular, the succedent, and the cadent. The angular are the cardinal signs, the succedent are the fixed signs, and the cadent are the mutable signs. And this is the division of the houses. The 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 fixity, mutability, and cardinality is the division of the signs. The angular, succedent, and cadent are the divisions of the houses. Right? So if you have a strong angular emphasis, that's the first house, the seventh house, the 10th house, and the fourth house, then you have an angular emphasis. That means that a lot of the planets are on these angles. And if they are on these angles, then they function a lot like cardinal signs and can get things done. That's how you got people that are not cardinal signs but are very successful. They might have strong angular emphasis, planets in those angles. Okay? And then you have the cadent, the succedent emphasis. And these are the second house, the eighth house, the 11th house, and the fifth house. And this is the fixed signs, the fixed houses. So in the angular emphasis, there's a strong need, almost like an annoying. It is kind of like an annoying, gnawing feeling of thinking or doing things outside the box. The cardinal emphasis has that same energy, but 10 times. And it's very strong, and then it fizzles, only to build back up again in cyclical periods. With the angular emphasis, this is a constant thread of energy, of ambition, of wanting to do something and make a name for yourself, or create something, or just move out of your comfort zone. It could be something as simple as moving from one location to another. That's a big deal for a lot of people. Some people stay put an entire lifetime in one place and don't move. Okay, so to move from A to B could be a big life-changing event for someone who is very fixed in their nature, right? So it really depends on the relativity of how you experience these energies and how you utilize them. Right? So and then you have the succeedent emphasis, the fixity, and they are the ones that the more planets you have in these houses, second, eighth, fifth, and 11th, the more the person is inclined to follow a routine. Now, these people like to get up at a particular time, go to bed at a particular time, do certain things in a particular way, uh, and they don't break from that fixity. That is the succeeding emphasis. And it can come across in any way in the behavior and style, or even in the environment of the person. And then you have the cadent emphasis, which of course the mutable signs, and which dictates the mutable houses. The sixth house, the 12th house, right? The third house, and the ninth house. Okay. And here is where again there is a level of flexibility and changeability that you may not notice when we're dealing with the mutable signs. The mutable emphasis is similar to the cadent emphasis, but there's a distinct difference between the two. With the mutable, you have almost like you could be ambidextrous, multifaceted. Um, when you are multifaceted, when you can find more than one solution to a problem, that kind of makes you creative. It makes you resourceful. Um, if there's enough cardinal emphasis, you can make a career out of that, or create something in your environment that can impact others. See, that's how you blend them together, right? With the cadent emphasis, there's something a little more than the mutable emphasis, which stresses the houses, and that is certain levels of proficiency in a creative expression of the particular houses. Okay, a unique expression, a unique creativity only suitable to the sixth house, or third house, or ninth house, or 12th house. For example, if you have a strong 12th house, which is a cadent emphasis, you might be psychic, you might be a tarot card reader, or a shaman, or a healer. That's specific to the 12th house, Pisces. Whereas the sixth house, its opposite, which is Virgo, deals with work and service. So maybe the person in the sixth house might be a Reiki healer, whereas the person in the 12th house might be a psychic medium. See, they're different, but they're mutable in cadence, but specific to the houses that they belong to. That is what makes difference between the cadence and the mutable emphasis. Okay, so in part one, we covered the elements, the houses, which would be the angular, acuity, and cadent emphasis, and then the signs, fixed, cardinal, or mutability. Okay, and then after we finish that, we go to the actual wheel, right? The actual wheel, and we divide the wheel in a particular pattern. And we, like I mentioned in the first one, we got 7 patterns, right? And these 7 patterns dictate a particular psychological expression of the personality. It never fails. And I mentioned that there's 7. We got the splash, the splay, the bucket, the fan, the bowl, the seesaw, and the locomotive. Those are the 7 patterns. So when you look at a chart at first glance, eyeball it, you already know what it is, what pattern it is. Based on that pattern alone, you can deduce a lot of information about the psychological nature of that person based on these 7 patterns. Okay, and we covered that in part 1. Okay, and then we go and we divide the wheel further, and we then begin to decode the planets. Okay? And here we, in the header, I should have put the sun and the moon, because that's what we're going to talk about today, the sun and the moon. We've already covered the element, the houses, the signs in part 1, and we talked about the chart ruler. The chart ruler is, for example, I'm a Virgo. So my chart ruler is Mercury. But it also could mean the sign on the ascendant. Now, the sign on the ascendant, for example, in my case, is Libra. No, so my chart ruler is Venus. Okay, so we will calculate the chart ruler, the chart patterns, which I just described, and then a mutable or mutual reception, which is 2 planets in 2 signs that belong to each other. Like, for example, my Venus, which was Libra and Taurus, is in Aquarius, and Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, is in Libra. See, that's called mutual reception. Okay. Then we got the final depositor of the horoscope, the oriental planet, what planet sticks out from all the other planets. What is the most elevated planet in the birth chart? What is the most aspected planet in the birth chart? And then what is the signature, the true signature, and the final signatures? That defines an entire 2-hour consultation or session in part 1, which is broken down here. Okay? See, these are things that have to be done before the birth chart reading. Now, there's a lot of energy that is putting the birth chart together before speaking to the client. Right? Now, when we finish that, we go into specifics on the birth chart. And in this case, we talk about the sun and the moon. Now, before I talk about that, I want to show you how, even in the birth chart, we can see the matrix breakdown, and we can see the gods in the birth chart. And let me explain. And this means that we have to go back to mythology. Okay, because one person asked me a while ago, well, Uncle Fernando, how come the mythology of Greek mythology, or whatever mythology, depending on the culture that you come from, right? We are in the West, so we're dealing with the Western culture, so we're dealing with the Greek, right? In the Greek mythology, we know that the gods are represented by the planets, right? Because they have the same names, right? And they have a function, and they are the template which defines life on Earth. Okay, they are the writers of the script, and we are the actors personifying their energies, through the birth of the signs. And then the platform Earth is where we enact the great soap opera, right? So let me break down the as above, so below concept, okay? Because that's important. Meaning this grapefruit. That's important to isolate. People don't like grapefruit. I love grapefruit. Let me erase this. Let me explain the same as above, so below concept. Huh? You don't forget that the concept of the family, comes from the gods. Why do we have a mother? Why do we have a father? Why do we have aunts and uncles, cousins, second cousins? Because the gods are related to each other. As above, so below. So they represent the first family, and that same family that they represent is replicated on earth through the agency of us, through our families. Everything is a template of something else. So let me put it to you more clearly. For example, you have Uranus, right? You have Uranus, who is the first god, not Zeus, not Jupiter. Uranus is the first of the gods. He marries Gaia, which is a big circle. Gaia and Uranus, masculine, feminine. You see the phallic symbol right here. That could be the testes, and that's the penis. And these are the hands. And this, of course, is the ovum or the womb. You see the phallic symbols there. They get together and they get married, the concept of married, right? And they produce Earth. Do you see the Trinity right there? This was the first Trinity. Now we're going into a cult. This is the first Trinity. Father, Mother, and Son. The church did a corruption and changed it from Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. It took the name of the female and changed it into spirit. This is where the politics of the church comes in and fucks things up. It should have left it alone, because the concept of male and female is more clear when you leave these concepts alone. But the church made a change and to take power away from the woman or the feminine by masking it and calling it spirit. But here we see Father, Mother, Son. The church changed it to Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. You cannot create. This is a positive energy. And if this is the Son, this is also positive energy. Positive energy, negative energy. So the church completely fucked this up. This is not natural. This isn't like two men or two women getting together, producing a female or a male. Okay? It is not the same. Right? So this is the first Trinity here. Father, Mother, Son, or daughter. So this is the original concept of the Trinity. Now we went from astrology to occult. But it's all the same because they overlap and they bleed together. Okay. Somewhere in the story, they produce siblings. for Earth. Earth is not here by itself. It has brothers and sisters and cousins, just like we have brothers, sisters, and cousins. So here we go. You have Uranus, right? Plus, you have a circle. Understand that the circle represents Gaia, the primordial womb, right? Then from this union, right, you have Jupiter. Saturn. Saturn did not rule the ages then like he does now. Right? Then you have Pluto. Okay. Then you have Neptune. And then you have Venus. Okay? Okay. Because I want you to understand that everything makes sense and everything connects. Okay, you can do a diagram here. You see this? You got Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, Neptune, and Venus. These are brothers. Jupiter and Saturn are brothers, and so is Pluto, and so is Neptune. And they have a baby sister, which is Venus. Okay? Now let's create another line, another diagram. Zeus or Jupiter marries Hera, which is an asteroid. Jupiter or Zeus marries Hera, and they produce 2 children. And that is Aries and Psyche. Do you see that this is a family? This is the nucleus family. This is the first family. Now, they have affairs and they have illegitimate children. They got concubines and side bitches and side niggas. And they have, just like we do down here. As above, so below. Do you see this? So if we are to be blamed for being evil, for being wicked, for being X, Y, and Z, where do we get it from? We get it from the gods. Because they are as reckless and as scandalous as we are. All you gotta do is pick up a mythology book and read it. I mean, how many times has Zeus played on Hera? Zeus is a big whore. He's a Don Juan, Sagittarius. He's got the biggest dick. And he's the one that goes out with a horse dick, fucking every single mermaid or nymph, having illegitimate children or having cyclopses and gorgons or titans that they create by having sex with other gods and create demigods or sex with humans, right? Like the Bible says, that they were not allowed to have sex with humans because it was forbidden. But they have it too. They do it too. People claim that homosexuality is something bad and wicked, it should not be done. But there are stories in the Bible and in mythology where Zeus had sex with other men. Where do we get that kind of behavior and energy and desires? From the same gods that created us. Now I moved away from astrology to the occult. But so don't be too hard on yourself for whatever kind of need or inclinations or desires, however virtuous or wicked they are, because they come from somewhere. Right? So we are no different than the gods, and the gods are no different than us. The only thing that separates us from them and them from us is the fact that they are immortals and we are mortals. Although there are some humans that are immortals, okay? Because they've been infused by direct God energy. Right? So this is the template. This type of template plays out in the birth chart. Okay? Now, here is, so this is the family. And they get together and they create where's my eraser? They all get together, right? So we got Uranus and Gaia. They create the Earth and gives siblings and cousins, which are the planets, which are there to aid the baby Earth. The baby represents the divine child of Antioch, or the divine child of the Madonna and the child. The Earth represents the child. It is the creation, the first trinity of Gaia and Uranus. And then they decided to create Adam and Eve, which is symbolized by the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon represents Adam and Eve. This is Adam, or Adam Kadmon, and Eve, which was primordially Lilith. This will be Lilith. Perfect. See, circles. Perfect. Equals. Something happened which many theologians describe have obliterated what happened, and we don't have the information, whereas Lilith took off and left Adam behind. That's not the story. They both united and left. They became equal. They were created as equals by Jehovah. And they defied Jehovah's orders as the ruler of the system and went off to create their own. So then the gods had to go back to the drawing board and redo Adam and Eve, but this time made them unequal by taking one half from the other, making them codependent upon each other, and making them codependent upon the earth in which they were placed. That's another trinity here. That's a secondary trinity here. Okay? This is what the church talks about, the fall or the great descent, to a particular degree. To a particular degree. Okay? I wanted to show you that the occult and astrology are no different. It's all part of the matrix put together. Okay? So the second part of the birth chart interpretation is that we talk about the sun and the moon, but there's also another element that we use, and that is the ascendant. So in astrology, the most important angle in a birth chart is the ascendant. The ascendant is the first house. It's the image that you give to people. And this image might be false or might be true. And the 12th house, which is before the ascendant, is the real you, the secret self, the part of you that you don't show people, that you keep to yourself. The ascendant represents the mask that you present to others, which could be genuine or not. Or if it is genuine, you give some, but not all, of who you are and represent. That stays in the 12th house. Right? So the ascendant also mundanely, because personally, individually, it represents, your image, your personality, both what you show and what you don't show, how you wear your clothes, your hair, your style of walking, talking, your mannerism, all of that. is on the ascendant, and it could be the real you or not, depending on the factions in the birth chart, right? And but the ascendant on a global level or a mundane level also represents the platform of the great soap opera that you're going to live in this lifetime. So, are you going to live a good soap opera or a bad soap opera? Are you going to be the villain or the heroine? What role are you going to play? Remember, it is your birth chart, and you are the star, both the hero and the anti-hero in your own story. Right? Okay. So in the second part of the consultation, I talk about the sun and the moon and the ascendant. And now if we can go now back to the chart of the subject born on 8/18/99 at 11 a.m. in Lake Charles, Louisiana, we see that the person has Libra on the ascendant. Larry has Libra on the ascendant. So this person is going to be charming, likable, agreeable, approachable, attractive, will wear coordinated clothing, and will seek to always engage in some form or another with other human beings. Okay, that's as generic as I can get. Then we add other specific details depending on further analysis of the ascendant, right? And the aspects or what have you. So this person has, but of course, that generic description I just gave you can be amplified when you add the degrees. The degrees really tell the story. They do. And of course, the meanings of the degrees is something that you are not going to know because it's something that falls in the field of professional astrologers and numerologists. So we understand what the degrees are, and we can look at degrees, and we can wince, and we go wow. But the degrees, they tell the story. Let me tell you, they tell the story. Okay. All in my mouth. Okay. The ascendant for this subject, Larry, is at 22 degrees. When we encounter this, we stop in our tracks and relook at the chart holistically. I gotta take out the C. The number 22 and the number 11 are master numbers. Well, some people add 33. We don't use 33 because there aren't 33 degrees per house. In the birth chart wheel, they are 30 degrees, not 33 degrees. So we don't use the 33rd degree because there is no 33rd degree in astrology. But it does exist in the occult. Right? So only 22 and 11. 22 corresponds to Aquarius. 22 corresponds to Aquarius. And 11 corresponds to Pisces. Okay? Now, what does it mean to have a master number? Or what do the master numbers signify? The master number 22 correlates to genius, Uranus, Aquarius, something special, the awakener, the great awakener. Some of you are going to do groundbreaking work, or you might discover something, something that's going to elevate you, your family, your community, or even your bloodline to the next level. It can even elevate society. A master number, it is the number of genius, elevated genius. Okay? But it's a difficult number. In another, series, we'll talk about it, but it's a difficult number. But this is also a difficult number, but they're both difficult. But if this is difficult, 22, then 11 is tragic. You have many people that are born with the number 11 or vibrate at the number 11, which is Pisces, which are your martyrs and those who suffer, go to great pains. But behind that, something is illuminated or something is brought to light that enhances a thought, a concept, an idea, a generation, or even an entire era. Like Jesus Christ revolutionizing an entire planet, an entire era by sacrificing himself to the cross. This is number 11, where there's a sacrifice, and it can also be human sacrifice, sacrificing your life for a greater ideal, a greater cause, something that eventually uplifts mankind from its current state to another. The same can be said about 22, Uranus, but it's not as tragically done as with number 11, which is Pisces, the sign of sorrow. Here, genius leads to madness. So, for example, David Koresh from Waco, Texas, who blew up that compound, he was a Sagittarius and he was a 22. Because of him, we have new laws dealing with fanatics and people with radical ideologies. Remember, this man blew up his entire compound in Waco, Texas, killing 40 women and children with him. The military had to be called. Because of this man's ideology and because it was left unchecked, and it caused a great calamity and tragedy, which has affected a nation, why David Koresh is going to go down in history. And laws had to be changed and amended because of this man and his thoughts and ideologies. No? So we can make sure that dangerous thinkers that act on their radical extremism don't rise up in our society again, causing this type of tragedy. So the master numbers can be both expressed positively or in a destructive way. But the end result, whatever medium is used, creates a long-lasting change that eventually affects society or individuals or a concept or an idea. Okay? So this person, Larry, right, was born with Libra at 22 degrees on the ascendant. So we know that this person is here to do something that's going to affect society, because number 22 is Aquarius, which rules, groups of people. This person might be a social worker for battered women, or he might be a psychologist, a child psychologist, dealing with children who have been molested or misappropriated in some way. Aquarius rules a select target population of groups. This person might be called to do something in the form of healing a particular group of individuals, or it may become more scientifically inclined and be an inventor, create an app, let's say, something like that. It depends also on more analysis of the chart. But we do know that with the 22 degrees here, this person is about to do something great, groundbreaking, that will change his life personally or societally or globally or even in a national or international scale, depending on the free will and what other factors are in the birth chart. Okay? This person has the sun in Leo at 25 degrees. The 25th degree is a degree of learned intellect. And when you add 2 and 5, you got 7. And 7 is the number of Libra. And it's also the number of Venus. which are vibrations that he has on the ascendant with Libra there on the ascendant. So you see how it connects? So this person, because Libra is very intellectual and can be very scholarly. So with the sun at 25 degrees Leo, the king, this man is going to lead the way for some kind of intellectual expression that's going to come across through his interaction with the ascendant Libra at 22 degrees, making a perfect trine to the sun. And in degrees, it's a sextile by element because air and fire are sextiles to each other. So this person in sextiles means opportunity. So this person has the opportunity available to maybe bring a body of knowledge, of intellectual property, of intellectual acumen, maybe to media, social media, blogging, YouTube. Of whatever platform the person uses, they can bring about some kind of level of intellectual knowledge to the surface that could be original and quite extends on its own because of the Leo emphasis, right? All right. And then you have the moon in Scorpio at 20 degrees. The moon in Scorpio at 20 degrees. Now, 20 degrees is a difficult degree. It is a degree of judgment. So this person may be judgmental, may judge people, judge situations, and he may be right in his judgment or he might be wrong in his judgment. Either way, if he's wrong, he's not going to correct it, or she's not going to correct it, or make apologies for it. That's negative. With Scorpio, you add an extra element of harshness to it because the judgment is a Scorpio energy, right? So this is a double energy. Now, the sun and the moon represents father and mother, but it also represents the inner feminine and the inner masculine. When you have the sun in a fire and the moon in water, or interchangeably, doesn't matter. You have the sun and the moon at a square because water and fire don't mix. We call this an elemental square, which is 90 degrees. That means that this aspect of the sun and the moon, which is a square aspect, is a degree square of conflict. This person, in order to bring about genius and bring about enlightenment, it's going to happen through the intercourse of conflict. Either his own inner conflict, which is very, very possible, because the sun represents the will and the moon represents the emotion. So the will and the emotions are going to be at odds with each other when you have a square. This internal struggle was absorbed by the parents because the sun and the moon also represents your father and your mother. When I look at a birth chart and I look at the sun and the moon, I can tell things about your parents that you don't know. I can tell what they did before they got together. I can tell you what they did when they got together. And I can tell you if they divorced, separated, one of them died off, why. All those details I can find out about your parents by just looking at the sun and the moon in your birth chart and looking at the aspects. If and what's crazy is that the same fate that your parents went through, you are going to relive it also. So if you have the sun and the moon at a square, then that means that your parents also have the sun and the moon at a square. And whatever conflict they went through, now you have absorbed it. And now you are going to go through the same karmic situation that your parents went through. This is why in the Bible it talks about the sins of the parents fall on the children. Well, just like we have DNA, blood DNA, we also have what's called planetary DNA. Okay? The moon represents one of the parents always. Always. My moon is in Aries. My mother was in Aries. Okay? So, and I know many, many, many people that you tell me what your moon sign is, I know what your parents are. Doesn't always work that way, though. It could be the grandparents or it could be another person altogether. And that too has a reason. But it's important to understand that if the sun and the moon have difficult aspects, then that means that your parents have the same situation going on, and now you've inherited. Now we got free will, but it says in the Bible, "My people perish because of lack of knowledge." Once you have knowledge of this, you can change the fate. You don't have to live the fate of your parents and relive it again. An astrologer will tell you why they went through what they went through, and now this is something that now you have to overcome and transcend. So sometimes I spend 5, 6 hours, and I got to do several consultations, talking just on the sun and the moon. There's a lot of information when it comes to the sun and the moon, and a lot of it gives powerful clues as to who your parents were, where they came from, even how they met and why. All that is detailed in the birth chart by looking at the sun and the moon, the signs that they're in, the houses that they're in, and the houses that and signs that are deposited in those houses. We also know with the sun and the moon here at a square that this person might have a difficulty actualizing themselves and bringing themselves to a point of self-empowerment. But that's kind of generic, because we all go through that, growing up, going through, adolescence, pre-adolescence, we got to go through the natural stages of human development. And all of us have to go through all kinds of challenges to get to the next level in our own human development. That's, of course, that's generic, but it becomes specific when you look at the degrees of the sun and the moon and what the lessons are specifically that one is here to transcend and then maybe teach others. Now, with the Libra ascendant at 22 degrees, this subject is here to transform groups of people and heal in a particular way that is intellectually based. There we go. And I think I said quite enough. The third part, we're going to talk about the north and the south nodes. Okay, guys, thank you so much, and I hope this inspires you and motivates you to order a birth chart. Thank you.